All right, so we're talking about Black Panther issue 3 and 4, Double Trouble. So we're picking up with Black Panther and his new lady friend, on their quest to identify the crime family behind a series of disappearances. So we see that in this issue, things are kind of heating up a little bit, and kind of ends up with, this issue ends up with them crashing a wedding, right? Basically.
Oh, yeah. Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers. That was a movie, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. A little bit different.
A little bit different connotations. Anything that you wanted to point out right away with this issue, Rachel, issue 3?
No, nothing in particular.
I mean, it really felt like, there's lots of backstory going on. We're getting a lot of kind of behind this, just kind of, like in those crime shows, right? When they have the board up. Like even this panel right here it's all computer screens, but it's like you see pictures of the different families and the things, going on. And,
yeah, that's a good analogy of
it. That's kind of what they're doing, is trying to piece things together, figure out what's going on here. I don't know. I mean, there's not that Black Panther and his alter ego working at and they figure out how to get into the wedding. And then we get a little backstory for, I think it's for her, isn't it? So that's what happens when you read a book and then a couple weeks go by. I apologize, but yeah, I guess that's part of the issue with this issue, right? There's not a whole lot that goes on.
Yeah.
The art was okay, but I think the art wasn't great because there wasn't really much going on. Sometimes you have the talking heads, right? I mean, that's kind of what's going on here. A lot of talking heads, so to speak.
They're building it up.
And we'll talk about issue 4 in a minute, but definitely building up to what happens in issue 4. I thought the shot there with where the wedding was happening was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, not a lot to say about this issue, honestly. And, of course, it ends, the big reveal, with your friend and mine, Deathlock.
Hey.
And he's got, like lightsaber. This is what happens when Disney buys Marvel, right? They put lightsabers in everybody's possession now. He actually, this last panel here, he kind of looks like a Sith, the robotic everything. That's kind of what a Sith is, anyway. Right? A lot of times they get robotic parts. So that's issue 3. Again, not too much to write home about. It's just a building issue as far as story goes. All right, let's talk about issue 4.
Exactly.
So issue 4 starts off with Black Panther and Deadlock going at it. So you got some exciting panels here. Some breaking of panel borders,
Yeah.
That's what you do when you have action. You can make it dynamic, right? Just fine. Not too egregious. Sometimes it can get out of hand, but I guess that's all right. And so it's becomes clear that Deathlock is under the control of another force.
Yeah. They go into that pretty fast.
Yeah. Pretty typical, Deathlock's always been kind of, he's like a hero, kind of, sort of, like an anti-hero, I think, sometimes. So it's kind of the standard, two heroes meet and they have a difference of opinion or misunderstanding. They have a little scuffle, and then they figure things out. Pretty standard comic trope happens here. So Deathlock goes on his own merry way. And to be honest with you, and I just had this thought, other than the fact that you could, like the whole, the kid playing with his action figures kind of moment, in a way, what was the whole point of that? Was there a point to the whole Deathlock fight? I mean, there was the whole, they find out
he was there. There's somebody controlling him, so they have to figure out what is really going on behind the scenes and he did have
that's right.
He had the video.
That's what it is. Okay.
Storage to show who was behind it all.
Yeah, okay.
Who was trying to disrupt this wedding.
That's right. I forgot about that. So again, it's been a couple weeks, maybe a few days, or whatever, since I read this issue. So I'm having to remember. Then we get back to I think he's a lawyer, right? Our lawyer friend.
Yeah.
T'Challa shows up.
It's cuz.
Hey, cousin, can you give me some help? I don't want to help you. Yeah, and I think they have a little exposition, but I guess he's kind of doing some interviews, I guess, or talking to people.
Yeah,
what's going on?
It's basically telling the story of how he found out some information, and they're pulling at Ant-Man.
Yeah, you're right. That is kind of like an Ant-Man moment there. 4 panels of that there, and then it's the Bisa, right? How you pronounce it? I keep getting it wrong. So bad with names.
She's stalking.
She's stalking. And then this weird, okay, so you have this section here, right? And you jump to the next page, and I'm telling you, it looks like a different artist. Doesn't it kind of? I swear. Or the artist was getting rushed. Doesn't it look like that way to you? It doesn't look the same quality, right?
No, there's some variation.
Yeah, I know that happens sometimes, but
I like this page, though, with them on the, I guess it's just on the rooftop.
Rooftops, yeah.
But as they go from section to section and having their conversation and their little quips, that, it's, the artwork is really nicely done to portray it without having it be in sections still.
Yeah, it's a 2-page spread. Yeah, you're seeing Black Panther's his, as he says, unusual abilities compared to a mere mortal, so to speak, and what she's able to do. Kind of some parkour moves, basically. She's kind of trying to avoid him a little bit. He's like, "No, we're going to keep talking."
Yeah, unless he's trying to discover more about her, and she's showing him that he's not as clever as he might think he is. But I like some of her ways of the way that they wrote it in, as far as how she's describing him, as his, what is it, his exiledness. Some other expressions that she used to call him, basically to point out what he is and what he is not. And then good old times at the roller rink, are not so good. So again, this feels like an episode of some cop show or something. You have the gang, you have one gang. So basically, you have 2 families, 2 rival gangs, essentially. And then, so with the wedding incident happens, so the other family wants retribution, I think is what we're looking at, right? Probably. Yeah, it's gang wars.
Gang wars. Oh boy. Black Panther, what you gonna do? We'll find out. Have to find out issue 5. So what do you think of the last 2 issues, 3 and 4? Overall thoughts.
I still like the artwork.
Yeah.
I still feel like it's still vibrant. It's still, there's going to be sections where maybe it is a little bit more rushed, and then there's areas that they're focusing more on the detail, which can be really amazing and beautiful. But I also like that the writing is good. They're, like I said, they got the humor there. It's not just all about giving the information for the story, but it's keeping to the humor of Black Panther too. And I think that the story is still continuing to build. I see that, they're adding more to it, just like they did with, put the little bit in there for Deathlock.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still developing more of that story and more with his character as he's expanding, being exiled.
Yeah. Yeah, so I pretty much echo what you're saying. I mean, yeah, overall the art's cool. The art's good. Some really cool visuals. Even though, again, sometimes probably because deadlines, whatever, things get rushed. Is what it is sometimes with these books. And yeah, liking the kind of mystery, so to speak, what's going on. There's a few different subplots too that are being woven in. So we'll see how some of those develop overall. So we'll see. Probably, I'm sure a lot of these plots will probably be developed further because right now it's the two families. That's like the main storyline, right? And then you have some other subplots. I think that might end up becoming bigger issues or bigger things later on that they're kind of building towards. So they're kind of really trying to, I think, build out Black Panther's story, and like I said, I like that they're kind of expanding what we see as far as his universe, where he lives and this country and everything else. So yeah, looking forward to continuing to see what's going on. All right, so that's Black Panther 3 and 4. So, all right, next up we have the Rocketeer in the Den of Thieves. Some thievery going on here. So this is actually I didn't realize this at first, but this actually picks up after another miniseries from before 4 that we didn't catch because we weren't really doing comics for that point. I don't know how far back the other miniseries goes. So, I remember Rocketeer from the movie.
Right.
I actually never, I'm going to sound bad. I never read the comic that the movie was actually based off of. I just remember the movie when I was a kid. And so that's all my only exposure really to Rocketeer. So maybe someday I'll get back to the original comic and read that. But for now, this is all I have. So, what's going on? Well, we find out that there's this elite group of Nazis. Earlier, they've been trying to make their own jetpacks because that's what Nazis do. Right? They steal technology.
Apparently.
Right? Apparently, they steal technology to make it their own.
I didn't know before this.
So they do, they kidnap Peavy, who is a friend of Cliff's, and the only person that can help them make their own fleet of Rocketeers. So that sets up a new challenge. That's the basic premise, because at this point, Cliff is hanging out with Betty. He's feeling like he's got a good life, and then all of a sudden, his friend gets kidnapped by Nazis. I mean, if that happened to you, I'll go after the Nazis. Get my jetpack on. Let's go. Gotta get Rachel
That's
back.
because you want a jetpack. Let's be honest.
Okay. All right. So that's the basic premise of the first issue. I should have said spoilers, but yeah, this issue's been out for a while, so
yeah.
If you haven't read it yet, you probably aren't, but maybe you will after we hear us. So, first thing off the bat for me, it's kind of a good thing for me and a bad thing. I mean, there's lots of graphic design with this book, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of graphic design. What I mean by that is, like, the panels have all these extra flourishes around them that are kind of trying to make it look like some sort of 1930s, right, 40s style, very classic
Bang,
style.
Boom.
Yeah, even like the little sound effects they have there, very over the top comic style stuff that you would probably see in comics of that time period, right? The art style is, again, also very graphic. It's very, by the way that it's not gory, but what I mean by that is that all of the shadows and everything has hard edges. It looks like it could have been done in Illustrator if you know about graphic design. But yeah, so it's very striking style, and I think some people are probably going to love it, and some people are going to not really like it that much. For me, honestly, the biggest negative I have with the art is the panels themselves. I don't feel like it needs all the extra flourish. I think it's one of those things where, when someone uses all caps in an email, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like, it's just always yelling at you. Whereas I think that like certain times they could have used the extra flourishes if they wanted to. Like, for instance, toward the beginning of the issue, there's this with the jetpack person. You're led to believe, I think, at first that it's Cliff, but I don't think it is, if I recall. But like that like that first panel here, right? That works for me. You have the extra lines. It's like, but then you just keep going with it. Every single page, you have these extra panels. But then sometimes when you don't have them, I feel like the art's allowed to breathe a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Rachel?
No, it does.
Yeah, like see these panels here, just mostly okay. So you got a little bit here, and you have bed. But again, splash page. Yeah, you're adding a little extra.
But like on this page with no pun intended,
Betty
with Betty Page, it kind of works in with the design of the art itself. So it's not contrary to everything like some of the other pages are.
Yeah, then you have the next page full up. That's a regular comic page. It works fine, right? But then you have the next
with
one,
the bold lines,
the super bold lines, and it's just, I don't know. I just
triple bold
triple bold lines, man. But then you have again with the splash page. There's another page where you have the Nazis with their jetpack people. I don't know what you're going to call a Nazi jetpacker. Not going to call him a Rocketeer, are you? That's already taken. German for Rocketeer. Anyway.
Let's not get into that.
Okay. But yeah, again, you have certain pages that look fine, And I don't know. I think it's a little over the top. And sometimes the shading gets, I think, I'm going to be honest, maybe a little bit lazy. I don't know. Like the cuts here, this one panel. I don't know. But yeah, I don't mind the graphic style of the art or the colors per se. But like that here, I don't know. That seems a little bit too angular. Does that make sense to me?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
A little over the top sometimes. I don't know. But overall, so that's the art. What about the story? What do you think, Rachel? Do you think the story was interesting, or was it just kind of meh?
I don't know. I like it because I like the Rocketeer.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I kind of have a soft spot for Cliff and Betty. That was my grandparents' names. Cliff and Betty were meant to be together, right? I don't know. From what I remember from the movie, I don't recall his personality being so weak.
Oh, Cliff's personality?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, it's been a long time.
I don't think I've seen the movie since the 90s when it came out.
I would agree. I don't think I have either. Yes, we're old.
Yes. Yes.
But, I mean, I still like it. I mean, I definitely with you on a lot of the design stuff. But I also see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I think that they felt that was going in with the theme of the era. But you can let go of that too. You can still bring it in commonality with the era and not have to have the artwork just stand out every page like that. And I thought it was a little odd too, just how sometimes the panels that they would show, the additional stuff had nothing to do with the story. Like some of the additional artwork that they shared just seemed completely irrelevant.
Oh, you're referring to the alternate covers?
Yeah, or like when it said next issue and it had that alternate cover, I'm like, that was completely irrelevant to the next story, but I think it was just trying to be enticing.
Yeah, I guess.
Too, but thought that was a little unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's it for now with Rocketeer number 1. Any other further thoughts before we move on? All right, let's talk about Rocketeer number 2. You alluded to that with the cover. So this continues with Cliff trying to figure out about
what happened to Pete. Although we already know what happened to Pete.
True. So issue 2 actually kind of starts in a similar way to issue 1. This is actually a flashback, where he's, I guess, testing out the rocket pack and ends up kind of crashing. Or no, actually, no, I take that back. He's dreaming about the rocket pack.
Yeah.
And it is kind of daydreaming while he's flying a plane.
Which is really dangerous.
It's super dangerous. So he gets a little talking to by the organizer of the event. And then him and Betty are having I'm guessing what you were talking about earlier, Rachel, about the cover, the way it looks. She's holding the apple. She's holding the apple there. You know, it's enticement.
Yeah.
Like you said. Yeah, so you were talking about with the cover for issue 2, didn't seem to really have much to do. I can see what you're saying. Yeah, when I first saw this cover, I was like, well, this is all ages. So, yeah, I think part of it just could be, that, again, enticing as far as the cover goes. And then I think it does have maybe a story element to it.
A little bit.
Because it's like
they're having a picnic, but still, I don't know.
Because I think part of it is Cliff is, obviously he cares for Betty and he wants to have a life with her. But then he also, loves being the Rocketeer.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't really do that right now because the rocket thing is busted. Rocket pack is busted. So.
Well, and she doesn't want him to.
Right.
She doesn't want him doing any of that.
But who would blame? Be dangerous strapping a rocket to your back and flying around, right?
Yeah,
really, when you think about it, it's kind of the whole thing's silly, but it's a comic book. It's okay. Because comics.
You can do anything in comics.
That's right. So, yeah. So this issue mostly is Cliff kind of trying to hunt down Peavy, trying to figure out what's going on. One thing I will say with the art, like there's some things with the expression, like I'm not sure.
Right.
He looks like he's evil or something.
Right.
Cliff looks like he's saying trivial, and some of the expressions are a little off. Expressions are hard, especially when you're doing certain kinds of emotions. Then in a certain scene too, he's going to the airfield, right, military base. Normally, if you were to punch a guard in the face at a military base, you'd probably end up in prison, right?
Typically, yeah. I don't know if things were different back then.
Maybe it's the Rocketeer. Different rules, I guess. And so, so then he gets some help from this secret government agent guy who looks like it's like some sort of like Marvel superhero or something. He got some massive chest there. The shoulders, man. But that's kind of funny, kind of cartoonish a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what they're going for. And then we have PB. We switch over to him, and they're trying to get him to do their bidding. The Nazis are, and so he does the old. I'm going to cooperate, but I'm really not. In the end,
right?
So. And then we have a little sneak peek at the next issue. So it makes us think that was Betty coming with him? She wasn't coming with him to Germany, was she? Because the little preview of the next issue's cover of the books makes it look like she's facing off against the Nazi girl. Like you said, it's like the covers kind of don't really necessarily have as much to do with what's going on. But anyway, so any other thoughts about this issue?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think that just the way that they portray his character, I don't remember it being that way in the movie. It could have definitely been, but I just don't recall it that way. But I'm curious to see how they develop his ability to save PB.
Mm-hmm.
And what choices he makes here, but because this is a limited, so they got to wrap it up soon.
Right? Yeah, I can't remember how many issues. I would say it's probably at least 4.
Yeah,
but it might be a little bit more. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know if it has. Comics used to tell you. They don't tell you anymore how many issues if it's a miniseries. How many issues usually? It's just there. It's just issue 2. Okay.
But I'm definitely in support of these alternative stories and artwork and everything, because it's nice to see somebody taking a chance on another story arc.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I might be, kind of negative about some of the things with the art, I do agree with you. I think, definitely we don't want sameness. You want variety. It's art, right? You want to see different styles. You want to see, air quotes, the impressionist and the realist and the cubism and whatever. Not that I want a cubist comic book. That'd be very hard to read. But, you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right, well, that's issue 2. At the time of this recording, issue 3 is out, so we'll probably look at that soon, and I'm sure we'll have a review on that as well sooner than later. Last for this episode is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, The Scorpious Run. That's a very long title.
You think so?
So this basically bills itself. Now, I don't usually get tie-in comics for TV shows. I think it's silly. I'm sorry for those that enjoy them, but I think it's kind of silly. Like right now, in the Marvel Star Wars, they're doing The Mandalorian Season 3 as a comic book series. As far as I know, I could be wrong. I'll check it out later on Marvel Unlimited. As far as I know, they're just going through the show. It's like episode by episode in comic book form.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
To me, it doesn't either. It's like, when I read a comic, I want original stories. And they used to do that like movie, the movie adaptations and everything. That's been a thing for a while. And that's the thing. I have the same feeling about movie adaptations too. It's like, I've seen the movie. I'd rather have, if you're going to put all the effort into creating a comic book, drawing all the art, writing out all the scripts and everything, why not just come up with a new story? I don't know. Just a thought.
It's for people who can't watch movies,
I guess.
Like people who can't read. It's for people who can't watch movies.
I just can't watch. I can read, but I can't watch movies. Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting. So what's cool about this is that it's essentially billed as a episode of Strange New Worlds that did not air. Okay, so that's kind of the premise, which I think is cool. Because again, it's a tie-in to the show, uses the same characters, kind of the same environment, so to speak, same everything else, but it's something that did not happen in a TV show. I think that's cool. Anyway, so that's the basic premise. That's why I picked it up, because I said normally I don't pick up these kinds of books, but because it is a unique story, there we go. So the basic premise is the Enterprise is just on their merry way, and then of course they get a distress signal. That old chestnut. And
of course they do.
Yeah.
And they cannot ever refuse a distress signal.
Never. Because the plot tells them to do that. It's in the plot.
Well, they're out there to save people.
To save people. It's true. Yeah, so they save their new alien friend, and then they go.
He was quite startled, by the way.
Yes, they were quite startled, and they want to borrow their spaceship. Can I borrow your spaceship? Can I borrow your spaceship, please? Borrow the Enterprise. What are you doing?
Because that's what the first thing I would ask as soon as I onboarded a ship. I would ask if I could just take it for a ride.
So they approach this kind of strange, like city moon planet thing. It's called Celius Prime. And then shenanigans. So looks like the person that runs it is apparently all powerful and is able to stop the Enterprise in its tracks, beam out most of its crew or some of its crew. Here we go. Got another sci-fi trope. Floating head in jar.
Mm-hmm. But this one is alive, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's like, yeah. So he's telling his thing. So apparently the person they rescued is in some trouble with this guy. And so now the person they rescued's trouble is now the Enterprise's trouble. So they get roped into...
So kids, don't gamble.
Yes, don't gamble. Yes, don't gamble and then borrow from the mob. It's not a good idea.
No.
Whether it's in space or on Earth, it's just not a good idea.
No.
So it turns out this alien was going to run in this race, the Scorpious Run, thus the title of this book. And so the Enterprise now has to run in this race.
Yeah, they got picked.
And so there's some exposition with them kind of mixing it up with all the racers. You get introduced to the different characters. And then they all line up for the race. And then the floating head guy decides to mix things up.
Yes, he does. That's not very nice.
No, it's not. He beams a lot of the crew to the different ships, seemingly at random. And then before Captain Pike can protest too much, the countdown begins. 3, 2, 1. Zoom. 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 Some sound effect.
I didn't see the sound effects because I thought there was no sound in space.
That's true. There is no sound in space.
So
that's your Star Wars or Star Trek. But anyway, so any initial thoughts, Rachel?
No, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think that they do a pretty good job of mimicking the artwork with the show, but they don't try to do it so much so that it looks like they're taking pictures from the show.
Right.
They still keep to a comic book.
Yeah, I think the artist is I'm sure, because this is what I would do if I was doing this book, I'm sure has, thousands, hundreds if not thousands of pictures from the show, and they're probably using as reference when they're drawing the characters. For the most part, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But yeah, because they resemble the characters from the show, but it's not one-to-one, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a perfect, photograph. Like someone literally took a photograph and traced over it. Which I have heard artists do sometimes on these books.
Really?
Yes.
No.
Well, it's because they are on these time constraints. So they're doing, and they have to do the likeness. And then let's say an artist isn't very good at likenesses. Not all artists are. And so they just get tons of pictures of a certain actor in different positions. And they literally just kind of, trace over it onto the page. They might draw the rest of it normal, but the face, so they can get the likeness quickly. I've heard that that's what some have done in the past, so I don't think that's going on here.
Well, if you guys are listening and you're doing that, get better.
Get better. Hey, deadlines, man, deadlines. So,
and definitely don't do that with ships. Don't take real ships and trace over them because that's just not fair. I'm sure they're copywritten.
Speaking of ships. Yeah, Enterprise looks pretty good. It's I've read Star Trek books in the past, and some artists do pretty good with the ships.
You like your ships.
I do like my ships, but I thought they did a pretty good job with the Enterprise. The other ship designs, though, I felt like they were kind of like, I don't know, a little generic, wouldn't you say? Maybe, I don't know. I guess
they look like jumpers.
Look like jumpers, but
they're like yeah.
Small quip, but just like, I don't know if the artist was told just to come up with random ship designs, and then went to randomshipdesign.com and hit a button, but maybe not. But again, I'm sounding really critical, but I do like this book. I do think it feels like an episode of Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. I think the art is good. Mm-hmm. I like the colors; they're nice and vibrant.
Yeah.
Which kind of matches the tone of the show. The show is kind of bright and a little bit cheery. It's not like some of the other Star Trek shows recently that have kind of go more darker tone. This show is kind of more bright and kind of more like the original series. That's the whole idea. So yeah, so bright colors and everything are at play, which is, I think, appropriate for the theme.
You like Pike?
I do like Pike. I like the actor that plays him. I like what he's done with the character. He's kind of made it his own character.
Yeah.
Of course, Pike as a character I think only showed up in 1 or 2 episodes of Star Trek, the original series. And he was kind of more of a background character for Kirk as his past. And so they've really developed it out. I think it's worked out pretty well.
I like that they took the time, and I think this is just evident for IDW. They put all the additional covers in the back too of the different artists. Really appreciate that, just because it's a shout out to other artists and what the work that they've done, and I think that's always a bonus to do so.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, I think it is cool. A little extra thing. They don't have to do that, A little extra thing to, like you said, just showcase the other artists that did covers. And did the same thing with Rocketeer, too.
Yeah.
So. Alrighty. Well, that is it for this episode. A little bit longer episode. We had a few more books that we wanted to get through. So definitely appreciate you all listening. And until the next time, Cafe is closed.